right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Spirit Live. Happy Taco Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in to Girls Got Game. Today, we are here with a very special guest, one of our very own professors, Laurel Walzak.
Woo.
Yeah. I'll just give you guys a bit of an introduction. Laurel, of course, she is a professor here at Ryerson University for the Sport Media program. She specializes in sport marketing and has years of experience in the industry, working with companies like the NHL, the CWHL, FitNF, with fiduciary responsibilities as well as overall corporate governance accountabilities. She's also one of the founders of a lab started here at Ryerson called the Global Experiential Sport Lab. Go check it out. We will tag them in our Instagram. Where research and sport equity projects are used to inspire students in the classrooms today, all around the world, in the U.S., everywhere. Her passion and experience in the sport media industry, and especially for women in sport and sport equity, is why we have Laurel here today, because she also inspires us and she should really inspire you. So Laurel, thank you for being here. We know you're super busy.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you here today. So today, basically, we're going to be going around asking you pretty generic questions because we know that you have so much to give to this industry and so much experience that we want you to be able to tell us what we don't know, or just tell the world, tell
or different opinions.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, sure.
So, who wants to go first?
I guess I'll start with a question. So this is Ella over here in the other room, but obviously we're all students in a very male-dominated program, so I feel like we kind of understand what it's like to be a female in, like I said, a male-dominated program, industry, whatever we're in. What would you say it's like being a female in the sport media industry?
Well, first of all, I think you used the word kinda. It absolutely is a male-dominated industry. Now, actually, the first year that graduated, it was a 50% male, 50% female.
Mm-hmm.
Your year in particular, I think, is a 30-70. It's a little bit less.
Ours is less,
We've been talking about that a lot. Why is that? Which is a question, because we need to be able to bring more women into the program, to graduate more women, so that you have more opportunity. But to be in the industry in a male, well, first of all, probably like many of you, I've played sport and grew up in sport. So that part of it, and understanding kind of the team dynamics and what it's like to kind of hang out with the guys. I mean, I played on a tennis team, and there was 2 females and 10 guys, and it was, the 2 of us became really, really good friends, and we're still good friends today. But yeah, there's benefits, and then there's a lot of challenges, which is why I'm trying to do a lot of gender equity education in this space. So it is challenging for sure, but I think understanding that what the industry is and what the challenges are with the gender will help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I find that actually kind of interesting that you're saying like that we want to make it more equal, which of course we do. I almost find that sometimes to make it seem more equal is like almost treat it like there is no difference, if that makes sense. Like more so in class, like I totally agree with what you mean during like going into the industry and having more women in the sport media industry. But I find in class, like if I want to be treated the same as the guys are treated in our program, it's almost like I want to ignore that difference, and I want to just be known as, it's not like, oh, she's a woman, like she knows so much, she really knows what she's talking about. Like, no, I just like sports, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, as I said when I came in here, don't ask me the headlines. So I'm not that person that is going to be talking about the headlines and knowing those details.
Yeah, there's more than just that.
Yeah, it's more than that. I know the business side. I know the overall general of a lot of the sports, and that's not my that's not my fandom, number one, but also that's not where my area of focus is. But it's unfortunate that when you're in class, you actually have to think that. Like you want to think that there is no difference, because there is a difference. And I also think that we, as women, need to step up more. I mean, we need to make sure that we have a voice at the table, that we're being heard, that we're putting our hands up, that we're in the conversation. And I've always said this, is that if you are demonstrating your knowledge, or you're performing, or you're stepping in and you're trying things, and even if it does make you a little bit vulnerable, then still move ahead to do it, because that's what's going to earn you that space, and maybe unfortunately, the respect that some males, and I'm not saying necessarily in our program, but just in the industry, are looking for. I actually went to Jim Gregory's funeral this weekend. He was the past general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he was an SVP, a very senior person at the NHL and Hockey Hall of Famer. And I was telling a story that when I first met him, I joined the NHL, he pulled me into his office, and there was a big picture on the wall of a lot of Maple Leafs from, I don't even know what year, 50s, 60s, 40s. I don't know. I still don't know. And he asked me, do you know any of these people? Can you name how many people in this picture can you name?
He was quizzing you.
He was quizzing me. And like, actually sat there and like, I don't know how to answer this question, because in my mind, I knew none of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I just confidently said, I wasn't internally confident.
Yeah.
I just said, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't know any of them, and took what was going to happen next. And his question to me was, well, how did you get in here? Did your dad play, your uncle, your cousin?
Of course.
Your grandfather?
It
And
always has to be a relation to a male.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, exactly. It could have been my mom's side of the family, or just my own accord. So I mentioned like, no, I love sports and I love hockey, and this is where I want to be. Anyway, that was the introduction. But that said, though, he did take me under his wing later on, and I recall, and this is where this comes in terms of having people within the organization to champion you or mentor you or look out for you. So the very first draft that I ever went to, I think it was in Columbus, we were on the arena floor, and he said, I want you to come and stand beside me, and when they take the break and everybody comes off the floor, I'm going to introduce you to important people, and I want you to be with me, and this is going to be how I'm giving back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of motion and effort was helpful, and those types of gestures are what we need more of, both from the females and the males in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I kind of have a question to follow up on that. So we talked just a lot about how there is an inequality between males and females, but do you think it's a bit less now? Because, before, a while ago, we saw only male commentators, we saw only male reporters, and basically only males in the industry. There were no females, and now we're starting to see more female commentators. We're starting to see more female reporters. Like, there are panels which are hosted completely by females. So do you think now the industry is more accepting of females, and it's kind of starting to realize, people are actually equal, and we can incorporate women in that industry as well?
There has been improvement and progress, but it's still very minimal. And I don't think that we're equal. I still see many inequalities, which is why I'm constantly advocating for gender equity, and specifically for females, and then trying to advocate that men come along with us and support us, which is why I think it's so important that we have our education here, because we're educating the males as well as the females. So there's a lot of studies, like there's my experience, and then there's studies. There's an amazing researcher called Cheryl Cookie. She's out of, I think, Indiana, out of the US, and she did a 20-year longitudinal study and looked at, it's compelling. She did 20 years and said, so let's take a look at the female commentators, the female play-by-play, the analysts, whoever it happens to be, the media representation, the broadcasters showing female sports, or how they're representing even women at the Olympics, as an example. And we saw some success for Rio Olympics in terms of what, the women kind of, they were winning all the medals, and they seemed to be who the audience was. Like, and during the Olympics is a lot higher female audience. But anyway, her research came back that the needle was hardly moved. So, there's some broadcasters, and I don't know the number, but I want to say about 2 years ago that we're still only representing like 3% female sports.
Yeah.
So that's not progress.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't see, you are seeing more women from the sport media side, absolutely. But it needs to be better, and it needs to be not this afterthought or the tokenism. It has to be like the automatic that person, that woman should be there, or that person should be there because she's good.
That just also made me think, Sophia Jurkajowicz, I know we've talked about her before, and she went to my high school, and she used to work here in Toronto for, I want to say it was the Maple Leafs, but I'm not entirely sure. But she just moved to Boston, and she works with the Boston Bruins now as the sideline reporter, and she posted something on Instagram, and I just thought this was something that we could definitely talk about on this show. But her caption was, "A long time ago, Jackie Redmond said, 'I don't want to be the girl that throws to the panel. I want to be on the panel,' and I've never forgotten that. Tonight that happened for me, not contributing by just setting people up as a host, but by actually providing information to the broadcast as a trusted, intelligent reporter. Since joining NESN, I've been put in roles that are stereotypically male around other parts of the league, but not here. I love their faith in me and appreciate it more than I can explain," and then she thanks them. But I thought that was a really interesting point. Like, I don't want to be the one setting them up. I want to be the one that's actually like delivering the facts.
Yeah,
and you definitely see
for
less
sure. Yeah.
females in that area in sport media.
Yeah, being on the panel versus throwing to the panel for sure. But you know what? I'm wondering about that because the president of that organization is a female. So we're seeing like a top down where I can't recall her name at the moment, but she has climbed the ranks. She's running the organization, and so you're seeing more female leaders. I think that's also important because you see women who have climbed the ladder that have been able to break through some of those barriers, and she's at the level that she's able to make decisions. So she's at the table making decisions, saying, "I think so and so should be necessarily." Now she's not making that specific decision. Of course, that's somebody else is making that decision, but it's thought about. I'm sure it's part of the culture potentially that she's bringing to the organization. So I think you need more females like that. But I also do think that our role as females is to step forward and let people know we want that spot.
Yeah.
That's important. And not be afraid to ask and ask and ask, even if we sound like a broken record or the negative connotations that go with like she's annoying or she keeps asking or she's a pain, so I'm going to do it. Well, you know what? Constantly putting yourself forward is going to give you that opportunity. So that's one, advocating for yourself, and then having leaders at the top that are advocating for you, male or female, is part of it.
Yeah.
And giving those opportunities. So that all of those factors have a huge role in how we're getting selected for things and how we're being able to have those opportunities. And hopefully she'll give back other opportunities and mentor young women as well.
I think you had a really good point when you said it has to be both male and female participation, because I remember in Megan Rapinoe's acceptance speech, she said it's going to be the people that are not the ones being victimized that are going to help make the difference. So I think what she was trying to say is that it's going to be the help or the assistance from the male side that's going to make the difference in female equality. Like, it can't be just the women doing it alone. It has to be like the males getting in there too and being like, hey, like let's change this, like let's cause a change. And I kind of have a direct question that's just totally hypothetical, but it's something that I think about a lot. I wonder, will we ever get to that point of it's equal? Like, is that, because I know the change that has been happening to get where we are today, it has been such a long journey, such a long path. And so that just shows me that this change and like actually achieving equality is such a long-term goal. Like, that is far in the future. And that's why I know a lot of us came into the sport media industry, because we want that to happen. But I just wanted to hear your opinion on how long that long-term goal is, and like if we ever will achieve equality, and equality in the sense that, okay, there could be equal numbers, but are we the ones throwing to the hosts? Like, that to me isn't still equal.
So I think it's going to be a very long time before we ever see that. I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. I'm not sure if you will either, because sport is so steeped in like the male power structure. It just, that's how it started and that's how it is currently. But I think that we're going to see some ebbs and flows. So you're going to see some successes in some places where the society is getting more comfortable with the transition. But there's so many areas that we're looking for gender equality. So we're looking at it in terms of pay. So are we getting paid the same? Are females that are going in the industry getting paid the same? Are we getting the same opportunities offered to us? Is the prize money the same? You know, Serena Williams is like demanding that my prize money is going to be the same as, let's say, Roger Federer. Representation in advertising, representation when a game is being played, representation in terms of getting broadcast airtime. I mean, you know, even getting... I've said this here even at the university, is that why do the guys get 7 p.m. on Saturday night and the women play at 3? That's the part, like if we're going to be total gender equity, male hockey gets the prime time and the women get the afternoon, the non-prime time.
Yeah.
So how do we change that here at a educational institution to make sure that that's going to drive that area? So there's so many factors that are that need to move the needle in terms of equality. But I think if we are able to move each one of those and identify what are those factors, you know, one of the things that I'm working on right now is to actually go out to the institutions and say, do you even know you're being gender unequal? And what is some gender sensitivities and what is some things that you're doing that are contributing to the inequity? And identifying those and then getting more information and education to say, did you know? When you do this, this is how it marginalizes the females in the room. Or, you know, identify those areas, teach them those areas, and get them to eventually mobilize change. That's why in the lab we're saying, how do we work together to mobilize change in the long term? And there's so many elements that require that. But if we continue to chip away at it, we will. And it's constant and calling out. I mean, I did an interview last week, which I'm curious to see come out. I'm not sure when it is going to come out. I thought it was November 1st, but this week perhaps, which we talked about the CWHL in particular. And we talked about some of the factors that kind of went into why the CWHL shut down and discontinued operations. And I think that there's a big elephant in the room. And there's a lot of factors in it. The male power structure. The one thing that I can't wrap my head around still is, why is it? I mean, I feel like I know why. I can outline all the factors, but then you're also wanting to be politically correct and careful and make sure that, you know, you manage lots of personalities. But the biggest question is, why is it that women's hockey could not exist in a female powered structure? Why does it have to exist? Because it's going to go into a male power structure, which I think, you know, the women want a professional sport, and wherever that ends up going. I have no idea. Okay, so wherever that ends up going, but why is it that a tsunami kind of hit it with so many of those gender inequitable factors that it couldn't exist on its own? And I think it could have. I think the big reason why it didn't is because it didn't exist under a male power structure. And the rest of the sports that fund it and exist under it do.
Yeah. I think one thing there is that, you know, it was so independent that women flocked to it, which made it more independent instead of women making a whole other organization as well. So I think it really attracted so many women that there also wasn't other organizations burning up at the same time to support it. You know, like you said, that the support organizations and the ones above them, and even they're male. I think if it had, you know, like female organizations around it, then we could have built something super, super great and super amazing. And I think to make that, maybe this was the change that we needed. Maybe this was like the kick in the butt that we needed or something. And it was so devastating when it happened. We talked about it in our show last year. Then we were like, what's going to happen now? Where is this going to go? Like, what kind of change is this going to cause? And now that we're seeing this year, I think you kind of made us realize that the importance, like the CWHL shutting down showed us the importance of having other female organizations around us so that we could kind of rally in a way. I don't know, that makes it sound like we're like going against the men or something, but building each other up is so important.
Yeah, the scaffolding, the strength and of the foundation and the scaffolding, which is, I think, doesn't exist currently right now, which then makes me curious about what's going to happen to other sports. If this has occurred to hockey, what's going to happen to soccer? Where's basketball going? Definitely all questions. But I also think that, where is it going? Well, it's going to go to a male-powered structure. It's going to exist under a male power structure, whatever one that is. It doesn't matter. That's the only place that it has to go, to my knowledge.
Sorry. Go ahead. I have a point to segue into the next question, but go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to follow up on that. So as you said, there's so many factors why it's unequal, and it comes from way back. But do you also think another factor of why males and females aren't equal in this industry is because just not as many females go into this industry? Because if we're looking at it, the percentage of males who want to pursue sport media and sports is way higher than females. And maybe that's why they're kind of dominated, because there's just more of them and women just don't want to, which is normal. I mean, everyone can pick what they want to do. But do you think that's a factor why it's unequal?
To build on that too, do you think that females might be discouraged to join the industry because of the inequality and because of the stereotypes against women in sport?
Yeah, both are factors, but I think that, so to address the first part of that, the percentage, for sure, right now there is a higher percentage of males than females, and that's changing. So it goes back to grassroots. And if we look at hockey again, if young women do not see themselves playing at a high level, like a professional level, or they don't see themselves working at a high level, and to see that they can achieve and grow their career in that space, then they tend to, I think the research shows, CAUS put out, Canadian Association for the Advancement of Women in Sport, put out some research that showed young women in their early teenage, when they don't see that opportunity, leave sport, leave playing, participating in sport. So there's right away, let's go back to the grassroots for a second. What's happening at the top of the pyramid is actually impacting the grassroots level. When you're being chosen for a team or you're getting play times, the girls are playing at 11 o'clock on Saturday night instead of 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, whatever it happens to be. Again, you can see how the inequities are occurring. Not as many girls are playing, and so there's not that pool. So that's part of it. But yeah, there is something that does discourage. And I have a mentorship program at George Brown College. So this is my 8th year or 9th year, I can't remember anymore, where I started this because I saw a trend for women working in the sport. Two things I saw. The first was that when young women were going into their internship, when I went to my internship, I said, I'm working at the NFL, the NHL, or the NBA. That's it. I'm going to pursue only that because that's the only place that I want to be. And I got offered the NFL internship, and then NBA offered it an hour later, which is I'm sort of why'd you offer me after now? I can't say no to the NFL, but anyway. And I saw some women doing their internship and all of a sudden wedding planning as opposed to doing it in the sport that they wanted to do it, and they were shy, or all the opportunities, let's say, were taken, or they went to the interviews and weren't hired. I don't know all the reasons for why, but I did see started to see this trend. What I also saw was that in their first year of their career, the first 2 years of their career, that they started to question if they wanted to be in sport. And I see that a lot, and then leaving it. So
We do that every day. We question
do you?
ourselves in the industry every day. Like every time I go to class, we have our doubts as well. So I think that's really true, where these girls, they've already gotten their internships. They're already kind of breaking into the industry, right?
Yeah.
But we're still just students, and we're doubting each other. That's just something I wanted to add.
We got to work on all that confidence because there's no. I mean, I look at all how many there are 6 women in this room that have so much potential, and you're great at what you do and you love it. So stick with it. And this is where the mentorship comes in, and the championship, which is, I offered them to say the first year in your career, I will be beside you to answer any questions that you have. Like, I don't feel like I fit in, or do you think I should apply for this job? Or so-and-so did this. How should I respond? What should I do? And you come to people for advice or for experience, and they're looking out for you. And you know that you've got that army behind you. And I'm only one person, but hopefully it's an army, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want them to know don't worry, I'll find other people. There's an army behind you to feel confident to do what you need to do to stay in this industry and know you have a place. And I've said this before in class. As soon as I walked in here, I'm like, don't ask me whatever. I don't even know who played last night because I was working late, and I got home and my door, I was locked out of my house because they locked my locks got changed. I didn't have a key, and it was like 10 o'clock before. So I have no idea what happened in sport last night. But that doesn't mean that I don't know anything about sport but I think that we are so highly criticized.
Yeah.
So highly criticized for not knowing something or making a mistake. That's something that, I gotcha. You didn't know. But I'm like, I didn't know. I'm not going to pretend to know. I have no idea. I don't even know the quarterback of the Indiana or Indianapolis Colts. Like, who is he? I don't know at this moment.
And
I'm sure I could look him up on Google and find out and then look at his stats. But I can tell you, other things. So that's where I think people like myself or other women in the industry can provide that. But I also would say that men need to look out for you to go, like, I know Elizabeth has so much potential, so I'm going to watch out for her. A job comes up at another organization, and you think of putting her name forward.
Yeah. Also, Emma, who's normally on the show, she just texted us, and she said, as females in such a male-dominated industry and program, she said it helps that we have a female prof to look up to. Like, it helps that, I think, how many female profs do we have this semester?
Just Laurel for me.
Yeah, just one, right?
Really?
But it's so nice to see, like, and you're at such a high level too, right? Like, you really know what you're talking about, and it's obvious to everyone in the class. So I think she has a good point. Like, yes, it's intimidating, but like you're saying, like, you're here to help us and you're here to lead us in the right direction. And it's nice to have someone to look up to like that. So good point, Emma.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Yeah, I didn't realize that. And you'll have other profs as well. I think it's important too that myself and other women are letting you know and like being mentors to you or encouraging you to put your hand up in class or attend things or stick with it or whatever it is that you want to do in sport. And it sounds so like that motivational talk, but it is going to be a challenge. Like we're chatting about the challenges. There is challenges. But I don't know, if you love it and you want to be here, then you make your spot and, you be here. So I have had challenges for sure, where some I'll maybe share with you maybe not in a public setting like this, but, and I do sometimes think that those experiences that I can share with you and it makes I wouldn't say I'm a trailblazer necessarily, but I have had some experiences that I can share and go, I actually took heat, or I was, that person that they say, oh yeah, actually people, I'm sure they would say, I know Laurel advocates for women. She's always the first person to make sure that I say something or maybe sometimes talk back. I couldn't hold back last week or 2 weeks ago. It was so annoying. I'll tell you, it was so annoying. I was I was invited. It was a fantastic, wonderful event at Right to Play. So I was representing Ryerson, and Pascal Siaka won an award, and one of our distinguished visiting professors, Ralph Lean, won an award. It was a wonderful event. And I saw somebody that I knew from a past life when I was at the NHL. And he was surrounded by a bunch of people, and he's like, "How do I know you?" And I said, I told him my name. And he's like, "Remind me of your last name." So I think I said Smith.
Good for you.
And then I'm like, Walzak. So I, said it. And I said to him, "Remind me of your last name." And so he told me his name. And he said, "Where did you work again?" I'm like, "This is ridiculous. You've got to be, why am I even standing here talking to you? You're an idiot," is actually what's in my mind. So I said to him, I worked at the bigger league than you did, if you recall. And he's like, "Oh yeah, you were at the NHL. I was at the CFL." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's you."
Now he remembers.
You absolutely know who I am. You know who my name is. You remember everything about me. There was lots of exchanges. I thought you were an idiot then. I still think you're an idiot now. But those are, I just jabbed back.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the people around, and I was sort of softly was like, "What an idiot." I did say that to other people. What a jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes that's just what you gotta do, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've had times where, like, people have quizzed me and been like, "Oh, name the top line on this team." Like, I'm a Penguins fan, right? So I've had people who are like, "Oh, name the top line for the Pittsburgh Penguins." And I'm just kind of like, I mean, I can name the whole roster if you want me to. Like, it's one of those moments where you just kind of have to show your place in the world and kind of say who you are, and that you're here for a reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and sometimes jab back. I like to have a little bit of fun that way. But people might, you used when you were talking about Megan and talking about the victimization, that example would be me pushing back, but that definitely would be perceived as me being a bitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
Right?
about to add, if you're the one pushing back, like if we're the ones kind of jabbing at them, then they're like, "Oh, you're so annoying. Oh, you're getting so defensive. Oh, you're being so sensitive. Like, why can't you just be normal?" But if you hear two guys talking, like, they'll chirp each other all the time, and they're tough, or they're strong, or but when girls do it, it's perceived so differently. So it's frustrating because you're trying to stand up for yourself, and you're trying to show them that they're in the wrong, but then they only kind of twist that. So what do you think? Is there like a balance between that? Because it's such a fine line.
It is. And I think that comes with experience, definitely, because you'll know if you've pushed too far. You'll know sometimes, like sometimes my principles get in the way. I push too far on that side, and then I pull back. You know when to fight your battles, when not to. When you don't want to burn bridges. Like, I could care less about this one guy at all. Actually, I think he guest lectured at Ryerson, and I was thinking, you'll never guest lecture at Ryerson ever again.
We don't need idiots.
We don't need that kind of attitude in front of my students, not at all. So it comes with experience. I mean, I've seen young women in this program where I can see that they are really pushing back hard. And sometimes that doesn't, it's a balance, right? And it's also personalities, sometimes being lighthearted and joking. Like, it's more yourself than it is like, we're sometimes acting for sure. You're sometimes like, there's a kind of jab back and here and forth, and kind of, you try things out depending on how it's going to work with another person. Some people are passive aggressive. I'm pretty straightforward person, and that has gotten me into trouble too, because I'm pretty blunt, pretty straightforward. And I've had my mentors say sometimes, like, you need to tone it down, or the way maybe you can position it better, you're going to get more efficiency out of what you want. Like, what do you need at the end of the day? So perhaps you're pushing too hard here, so maybe you could go another route. And that's with learning about people and learning how to manage people. But I don't care. Like, this is the other thing. You care at this age if the guys are thinking you're acting like what we men immediately say, that we're whiny or we're complaining or we're bitchy.
Yeah.
I don't care today. I used to, but I kind of pushed the barrier there. That's where, you start to see that you gain respect. If you're gaining, I've got phenomenal colleagues at Ryerson, and, Joe Recupero and, Joel Darling and, all Adam Larry, you'll have him in third year. Phenomenal people who don't treat me any different than the guys, and they know I add value. They know what I bring to the table. We have a great relationship, and I've never had any issues, and I don't think I ever will. And if I did, I'm sure we'd talk it out.
Yeah.
Just to kind of touch on that too, like from all the like male profs that we've had so far, I've never felt like discouraged from any of them. Like they've always been like super for equality and like super accepting of everyone in their class, no matter gender, race, sexuality, everything like that. So
Yeah, I would agree, but I would also say that, one thing I do see in the program with the females is that I would also encourage you to step up more and have that voice in the classroom, or have that voice when you want to be, in studio and in lab, in TV lab that you're working in, or whatever you're doing, get that experience, like be involved.
Yeah.
To show like that what I'd say, do more of that. First of all, you do more of it because you're gonna get more experience, but I also think this is where, unfortunately, we have to do more. And that's where I would love for us to, it's not good enough for females right now. Here's the inequity, to do the same as the males. We have to do more. We have to perform higher. We've got,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say too. Like, it all depends what people you're surrounded by, right? I mean, obviously there's gonna be people who are gonna discourage you, and that's just how it is. I feel like not just in sport media, just in life in general. And there are gonna be those like biases towards females, but I mean, I feel like at Ryerson we're in kind of a tolerant and friendly environment. I mean, I don't feel like I'm like discriminated against. I feel I feel comfortable, and I really feel like everyone is accepting. And of course you can't get into people's minds, but by the way they treat us and by the way we're all treated, I feel like it's with huge respect, and I really do feel respected here, and I never feel like discriminated as a female or as a woman. So I really think it depends what people you're surrounded by, for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm so grateful to hear that. Since it's knowing also, I mean, I'm looking at your class in particular. I see that with your group for sure, and the second years, phenomenal group of people, and they show me similar respect. I haven't had that always. Some times I have not experienced that. But I definitely see it with your group. So I think that this is where it can change. So if it continues to be like this, and then others that you interact with depending on the years, and then showing by example, you can also demonstrate that to the people that are before you in the years to come. 'Cause you're still early in the program. But I love hearing that. That's great. And it creates a culture. Like, then you go, well, if I'm equal, then I can... I don't have to stop battling that. I can just kind of do what I'm supposed to be doing and want to be doing.
We can focus on what we have to do more
Yeah.
than focusing on how am I going to get in the spotlight here.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to be, how's my work going to be validated? How's everyone going to think that, like, oh, I can actually do this? We can just focus on whatever we're doing instead of thinking, like, oh, I have to do better than the boys now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't speak for all of us, but, most of the time I feel comfortable with the people I work with, even though they're guys most of the time, just because of the difference in males and females in our program. And I always feel comfortable to speak my voice and to say something and to step up. So I think that's very important.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, we have just over 10 minutes left. So we've talked a lot about actual women in the industry, but why don't we switch it to more of women in the sport? And obviously, as Natasha introduced you before, you have your place in the marketing industry. So what are your opinions on marketing female sports? Do you find it's very different from marketing male sports? Do they get more attention, more coverage? Or what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, it's definitely different marketing female sport. Hockey in particular, obviously, I just spent a lot of time in that space. I'm taking a look right now at spending some time in the basketball area, and we just did a studying class with MMA, which is interesting, which I think has so much potential for women to really take a step forward. And I grew up playing tennis, so I was really quite happy to see that Serena this year made the top 100 in terms of marketing sponsorship endorsements in the Forbes top 100 athletes. So it's different because there are less resources. I can imagine what we could do if we had more resources, more people, more money, more facilities, all of the above. So you're trying to market to the fan base, not just like I struggle with this, that I see a lot of, it's a women's hockey team, so women must be the fans, and that's not the case. It's like making sure that there's also just like male hockey, it's not just male fans. So there seems to be this misconception, but the sponsorship dollars are not there. So I look at women's hockey in the Olympics the year that the men didn't play, or at least let's say the top NHL players didn't play, and wow, what a huge opportunity it was for women, and they kind of stole the stage. Canada and US, unfortunately Canada lost, but it got all of Canada watching, and so much money put behind the Olympics. And then they come back to play in the CWHL, and there is definitely an uptick, but it's not sustainable. So we need more money to market to the fans, more partnerships, more sponsors. So, in class, we talked about all these sponsors activating in the marketplace, and those types of executions, marketing wise, and dollars spent in those investments need to continue for women's sports, because it's not occurring at the level that it should, in my opinion. And the female athletes are wonderful. They're also stepping up and they're getting agents and seeing more endorsements as well. So that's going to help when you're marketing the athletes, in addition to marketing the sport, marketing the league, and marketing the teams. So all of that is part of it. But the number one thing, in effort to be able to drive the key drivers that are going to make a league successful, you need money to do it. And to build the audience, that means you need more broadcast airtime. You need that will equal selling more jerseys, having more people to a game, selling more concessions, all of the above. Advertisers will want to invest in that area, but you need money.
And I know we talked about this a lot last year, with mostly about the CWHL, but we were talking about how it's almost like a cycle. Like, if more people don't watch women's sports, obviously they're not gonna the industry isn't gonna want to make more jerseys. They're not gonna want to put all this money into it if no one's watching it. But it goes back the other way too. No one's gonna want to what am I saying? Exactly, it goes both ways. So it's hard to get past that. But I feel like even despite the CWHL folding last year,
impossible.
No,
I think you're gonna see too that when professional women's hockey finds its place in the next 3, 6, 8 months to a year, whatever that might be, that there is going to be a more significant investment in that space. Because, well, first of all, it deserves it, but that's not enough. But second of all, because if you're going to take it on, you need to invest the dollars. And there was a lot of criticism around the fold, for sure. And so if there's a lot of my thought is, well, if you criticize the fold so much, well, then put your money where your mouth is, and put the money against it, and it won't fold again. But without the money, all of those things, the integrated approach, and you've got to have broadcasts. The media is a big part of it. You have to have fans attending. I mean, some of the games in Toronto had, I don't even know, not even 100 people attend. and that's not enough at $5 or $15 a ticket to sustain. You need 1,000 people each game to be able to start to build that, and more. I mean, that was just what the arena capacity was.
Something I wanted to also kind of bring up is that when the CWHL did fold, the last game of the CWHL, so many people came. Like, the arena was full, and it was on Twitter, it was all over Instagram, all over Facebook, everywhere. It just blew up once it was folding. So it's like, why? And everyone
Why wait till now?
Yeah, and everyone was so angry with it folding, and there was so much negativity towards that, and that just blew up. So why couldn't that could have been generated earlier and maybe could have saved the CWHL from folding? So that's kind of sad, but
and also too, I remember the final game, like the championship, all the tickets were free, I believe.
Probably, I don't recall.
I think they were free, so like it generated a big crowd, yes, but people also didn't like have to pay to go, which personally I don't think that's a step in the right direction, because
Neither do I.
You would
this is the first time hearing that.
Yeah, like, you would never see a Stanley Cup final game with free tickets.
Imagine that.
Like, that's not how it works. So
I have never heard that. I'm not surprised that a certain number of tickets were given for free, at the end when you're trying to fill the arena. But I was not aware that all the tickets were free.
I could be mistaken, but I
hope you're mistaken.
I hope I'm mistaken.
Well, there's a big part of the problem.
I believe that,
Jeez.
they were free.
All the stuff we're learning. That's a huge part of the problem right there. Okay,
Yeah.
So fans were pretty angry, and they should be. Absolutely. At the same time, why are they going to watch the Olympians, a group of professional women Olympian hockey players, play for free?
Yeah.
I think it's important for fans to know how much of an impact that they can have on the league, on everything. Like, a lot of it is also in their hands. Like, of course you need it from the top down. You need the money coming from the sponsors and everywhere. But I think if the fans were the ones to initiate attention, then of course they're going to catch the eye of the sponsors and everything, and they're going to say, hey, this is worthwhile. And then the money, like, they come so hand in hand. And I think, how do you market to fans so that the fans market to the sponsors?
Money. Still comes
Always money.
Still comes down. The fans can have a pretty powerful voice when you have fans in numbers, like the masses, and I do think that there is tremendous potential there for women's hockey. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of fans. The sponsors have to reach the fans. The broadcaster has to show the games to let them know that it's on. Like, it can't just, like, 3 games were broadcast before the Clarkson Cup, and it's grateful. We're sitting here saying it's absolutely grateful, but it's not enough. But now, mind you, the viewership numbers they didn't even hit, was it 68 or 73,000 people watching that game? That was lower than years before. I think one year we did 90, close to 100, and I think the threshold was break 100, and you can have more on air time. But and Rogers did a really good job at marketing it before, and the Toronto Maple Leafs did a great job at marketing before and put a lot of that effort, that kind of power behind it. But if you don't have the dollars and you're not, you don't know where to watch it, and all of a sudden you're saying, like, oh, make sure you watch this game, and you're like, well, where have you been all year? That's not enough.
Yeah.
I have a question. Would you say that hockey is the most progressive in terms of marketing women's sport? Because I see, like, the WNBA and their work with the NBA, and you see, like, the U.S. women's national soccer team getting equal pay. And I think there was another country recently that also got equal pay to their male team. But do you think...
No.
No?
No.
Not hockey?
No. Not at all. Not even close. Not even close. Did I say that clear enough? Golf, more the individual sports right now, but golf and tennis, like tennis is number one. But they also have, a huge advocate with Billie Jean King and some of the players that's refused to play.
Yeah.
In women's soccer, they're like, we refuse to play, or we're going to sue you.
Yeah.
So, just quickly on the end is that there are other sports that are way